Okay, are we all set to go technically? Yeah, good. Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Kingsholm. It's been a long time since I've been able to say that. Welcome to the fans forum, the first one we've had for a little while. I have to apologise to everybody who isn't here. This was the maximum number of people that we were allowed because of the COVID restrictions, and we'd planned to broadcast this live. Unfortunately, we've been defeated by the technology, which is not allowing us to upload it live. So we will be recording this and showing it later. So if you're watching this online, sorry you're not watching it live, but I hope you still enjoy it. And thank goodness we've got a crowd of 25 people in to see what we're saying. We do also have all the questions that have been emailed and sent in, so hopefully it won't be too much of a disappointing experience not seeing it live. What I wanted to talk about today, and first of all, I guess I should introduce ourselves. My name's Lance Bradley, I'm the Chief Exec here. We've also got George Skivington, who you hopefully know is our head coach, and Alex Brown, who's our Chief Operations Officer. And then the cast of thousands at the back is our entire operational team, Lucy and Tim and Richard and Mike stood at the back there. What I want to talk about this evening, I want to talk about an update on what we're trying to achieve. It's been a long time since we've been able to talk to you, and we've had updates in terms of newsletters, but that isn't quite the same as being able to talk to you and hear what you're saying. So I want to explain what we're trying to achieve, what the impact of COVID has been, how we're going to achieve the objectives that we've set out, a bit of an update on our new training ground, and then the bit that I know that you're really interested in, which is recruitment and the playing side, which I'm going to hand over to Alex and to George for, and then questions at the end. And as I say, we've got some questions that have been sent in, but if anybody here wants to ask a question as well, we're very happy with that. So first of all, what are we trying to achieve? Well, it's pretty simple what we're trying to achieve. We want to achieve a consistent top four finish, because we know that if we do that, that puts us in the best possible position to win trophies, and that's what we're here for. That's what everything in this club is geared towards. And financially, we want to break even. We're not interested in making a profit. Any money that we do make gets ploughed back into the playing side, but we do need to be at a point where we're breaking even, so that we're a sustainable club. So let me put into some context where we've come from in terms of those objectives, because I know that there's a little bit of frustration about where we're going and how we're doing it. This chart shows our league positions over the last 9 years. And what you'll see there is over that period, in 5 of those last 9 seasons, we've finished 9th. So we're not coming from a position where everything has been fantastic for a really long time, and since whatever disruption might have happened, everything's fallen apart. That isn't the case at all. Over the last 9 years, our average position has been 7.5. And that's a pretty mediocre position to be in, I have to say. You can see that in all that time, there was one season when we finished in the top 3, and we had a few key things that went our way at that time. It was Danny's first season, and he was trying to get into the England squad for the World Cup, and at many times he was completely unplayable. We also had the fortune of good weather, and that sounds slightly mad, but the way that Johan played was a very expansive game, wanting to run it, and almost every game that we played, the sun was shining. And I know that sounds a small thing, but it's true. The games that we lost actually were the games where it was raining. And you can't rely on that kind of luck going forward. And we did have a pretty good squad that was pretty much unaffected with injuries in that season as well, and that helped as well. But those were 3 things that are not sustainable reasons. You can't build a squad and build a club success based on being lucky on 3 things. So the only time that we really performed to what we would think is an acceptable kind of level over the last 9 years is when we had 3 pieces of luck all going for us. So I just wanted to make that clear, that this is the base that we're coming from. From a financial point of view, the story is even worse. In the early part of the decade, we were making a small amount of profit, and that was getting ploughed into back into the playing department. But from 2014 onwards, not only were we losing money, but we were losing more and more money every season. So there's this image that the club has been fantastic and everything's been great. It really isn't the case. The club has been losing more and more money to a point where it was becoming a problem, because losses of £2.5 million, which is what it was in 2019, are simply unsustainable. We can't keep running a club like that. So it's been in a poor situation. I started in 2019 and brought Alex across to the commercial side with me fairly quickly after that. And there were some things that we were able to do that resulted in a quite dramatic turnaround. So in the first 12 months that we were here, we did manage to turn around the financial fortunes of the club, but to the tune of almost £2 million. And that's quite dramatic. So our financial year runs until June. So some of that is due to the salary reductions that players took, but that only happened from April, so April, May and June, so it was only for one quarter. And the salary reductions account for about a third of that improvement. So the rest of those improvements come from things that we've done within the business in terms of cutting out unnecessary costs, becoming more efficient in what we're doing, getting better business contracts in place than we had previously. And all of that was heading towards quite a rosy picture for next year, where we could be making £1 million, something like that, and ploughing all of that back into the playing side. As I say, that's what we'd been aiming to do. But then COVID hit. And COVID was quite a big blow. There's an understatement in many ways. Obviously, there were the health implications of it, and our sympathies go out to everybody that was affected in that way. But from a club point of view, we went into lockdown in March, and we were facing the prospect of no income for an indefinite period. And I know there's people in here who run their own businesses. One of the things that you need to have when you're running a business is some kind of certainty. You can cope with adversity as long as you've got some kind of idea of what it's going to look like and how long it's going to go on. We were facing the prospect of potentially no income, and we didn't know how long that was going to go on for. And our salary bill at that time was £1 million a month on everybody. So that's quite a daunting prospect to be. There you go. There's the second understatement of the evening. That was quite a daunting prospect. And we acted very quickly to it. We were one of the first Premiership clubs to act that quickly. And we got a bit of stick for that because people said we didn't know what we were doing. In fact, it was exactly the opposite of that. We knew exactly what we were doing, and we knew that we needed to act quickly in order to make sure that we were in a position to survive what was definitely going to be an incredibly challenging time. Everybody in the organisation took a 25% pay cut. I was the first one to volunteer for that. Alex was the second. David Humphreys was the third, because we don't believe in asking people to do things that we weren't prepared to do ourselves. Some players and coaches moved to other clubs. You all know who they were. And we had to make some redundancies. And nobody likes doing that, but we had to do it, and it happened at every Premiership club. Once we'd started to do it, the other clubs followed us in that kind of action. The ongoing impact of the reduced fan numbers, etc., for this season is around £7 million. Now, you saw earlier the financial figures that we were talking about and how we'd managed to improve things to a loss of only around £750,000. So to lose around £7 million because of this is a massive problem. It is a massive problem. But we've taken out a bank loan. The shareholders have put some more money in, and all but the lowest earners in the club are still on a reduced salary. We've all still agreed to take a reduction on an ongoing basis. There's also been a government support package announced, part of which is specifically for Premiership rugby clubs. We don't have the full details of that yet. We've got the pack of information that we need to send back. We do know that it will be in the form of a loan, and we do know that it will be enough to see us through this year. But loans, of course, have to be repaid. So we've taken on quite a lot of additional debt, and although some of it's quite long term, in the end we will have to pay it back. So we hugely appreciate the support of fans and businesses who've been able to support us, people who didn't ask for a refund on their season tickets, sponsors who continue to pay their sponsorship fees, which was pretty much everybody. So we hugely appreciate that. And we are in a better position than many Premiership clubs. We're in a much better position than a few Premiership clubs who are still really struggling. But we are far from out of the woods. We're going to be paying back these loans for years. So we're okay, but we are far from out of the woods. Our underlying financial performance was and is improving significantly. If it hadn't been, we would have been in that group of clubs that are in massive trouble, but we're not. But the impact of COVID was huge, and we will be relying on your support to overcome the impact of that over the coming years. It's always been important to us. It's especially important to us now. And you can help with things like donating instead of asking for a refund if you're able to do that, buying a club membership. Details of that are going to go out, I think, tomorrow morning. I had mentioned previously that we were planning to offer a 2- and 3-year club membership. We're not able to do that at this time. Unfortunately, the ticketing system that we've got simply doesn't allow us to do that, which is, I'll use the word disappointing. That isn't the word that I used when I found out about it earlier, but it'll do for a broadcast. And hopefully we'll be able to offer that at some point in the future. But if you're able to buy a club membership, it does make a big difference to us. Spend money in the shop. We've got some great stuff in the shop, and again, we're working with Elite Pro Sports to try to make that even better going forwards. So we'll have a lot of good stuff in the shop, and I can see a load of you have turned up this evening wearing stuff that's obviously new, so thank you for that. Buying something from the Squad of Thousands page on our website, there's going to be new stuff regularly on that, and a lot of it, I was going to describe it as money can't buy, but obviously it can, otherwise it wouldn't be there. But money can't normally buy stuff on that website. So, you know, a box for the Bath game hosted by Mike Tyndall, you know, that's not something that comes along every day. Training kit from the players that they'll either sign, or if you don't want them to sign, then you can have it to wear if that's your thing. When you are able to come back to Kingsholm, and we are confident that that's going to be an improving picture, you know, if you can buy an extra pie or buy an extra pint, that makes a big difference to us. If everybody does that, it makes a big difference. And if you're running a business, become a member of our new business club. We'll have the details of that on the website pretty soon, within the next few days. And if you are able to support the club in that way, that too would make a big difference. And the reason that it's important, it isn't because we want to make money. It's because a strong financial performance means that we can invest, that we can continue to invest in the playing side of our squad. And that's what we're all here for. That's what we're all focused on. So how do we achieve our playing objectives? Well, first of all, let me remind you again of the context in which we're coming from. We've typically been somewhere between 7th and 9th over the last 9 years. So we had a culture within this club that was the kind of performance that was expected. That was what we normally did, and everybody kind of got used to that. We're not used to that. We don't think that that's good enough. And what we recognized when it came to looking for a new coach after Johan decided to leave was Einstein's famous definition of insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So when we came to look for a new head coach, we didn't want the same kind of head coach as we'd had recently. We had over 70 applications, and some of them were very high-profile applications. One day I'm going to write a book, and then I'll be able to tell you who it was. But you wouldn't believe the people that applied for the job, some very good people. But what we wanted is we wanted somebody from the UK, somebody who understood what the rigours of the English winter mean, somebody with Premiership experience, so somebody who understood that, unlike many other leagues, you never get an easy game. The teams in the Premiership are all pretty much matched. The salary cap means that the teams are pretty much matched. You never get the chance to face a weakened team and make decisions on that basis because there aren't any weak teams in it. So we needed somebody with Premiership experience, and we needed somebody with very high standards because we have high standards, and that's what we need throughout the organisation. So in appointing George Skivington and George appointing Alex King and Don Waldock and retaining Tim Taylor and Trevor Woodman, we've got one of the most exciting young English coaching teams in the Premiership. And we're really pleased about that, and we're very excited about what that's going to mean for the future. This is a long-term project. Short-termism does not work. Even if things don't go well to start with, and it could quite comfortably be argued that a couple of our results recently aren't exactly what any of us wanted, I don't say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter to our long-term plan, because we're talking about a plan. I'm planning to be here for 10 years. George is on a long-term contract, and we're hoping that he's here a similar kind of time. We're not looking at short-termism. We're looking at building towards a properly sustainable club with plans on an ongoing basis. We've carried out a thorough review of our whole structure, starting with our academy and our scouting network and seeing if that's doing what we will want it to do on an ongoing basis, and it's not. So we're going to be implementing changes in the way that our academy operates to ensure that it delivers the players that George needs for the first team, because that's where it has to start. What do we want for the first team? What does George want for the first team? And how do we get there? It's no good having a push mentality. It needs to be a pull mentality. And I'm not going to give you a huge amount of details about exactly what we're doing with the academy, because we are very excited about it. We don't believe that any other Premiership club, and possibly no other club anywhere, is doing what we're planning to do. And I don't want to give, much as I'd like to share it with you, this is going to be broadcast, and I don't want to give anybody any ideas about what we're going to be doing, because we do think it's better than what anybody else is doing. It will take time to come through. You know, people talk about Exeter and their success. Exeter's overnight success took 25 years for them to get where they are. You know, I'm not suggesting that ours is going to take that long, but we are building for the future and we're building for the long term. The academy is important not only because we all want to see Gloucester boys playing for Gloucester, but also because a strong academy system means that we will deliver the strength in depth that we need. It means that we can maximise our squad strength within the new salary cap rules. And you'll be pleased to hear that I'm not going to explain what the salary cap rules are, because they are a bit complex and quite boring. But we've introduced a new tier to our academy, which we've called the Elite Academy. And longer term, it's our intention to have one player in each position in the Elite Academy. And you'll see those players in the Elite Academy playing for the first team. And the attraction of that is that the Elite Academy players sit outside of the first team salary cap. So, and there are criteria that you have to meet for those players to be considered Elite Academy, but they sit outside the salary cap. So if we have real serious strength in there, then we can still spend up to the salary cap within the first team and have all these talented youngsters sitting outside the salary cap. And you're already starting to see that coming through. Players like Jack Clement and Stephen Varney have already come through and are within that system. So that's the kind of player that we're thinking of developing. And incidentally, both of those players have, Stephen Varney's been playing for his country and Jack Clement's been training with his country. So it's clearly working. We've clearly got these talented youngsters. The other thing that will mean is, with that kind of clear pathway and the opportunity to play and the opportunity to progress clearly through the academy, into the Elite Academy, into the first team, it hopefully means that we stop this drain of losing our academy players to other clubs, which I know has been very frustrating. It's been frustrating for us as well. But what they want is they want to play, and they want to know when they can play, and they want to know that they've got a chance of playing. Within this system, we will have all that, and they'll have a clear progression. And despite the challenging financial climate, we have ring-fenced the playing squad budget. So we are spending to the salary cap, and we do plan to do so on an ongoing basis. That isn't something that we've compromised on. Just so that you know, the salary cap has been reduced by 25%, reflecting the current situation. And there are some exceptions around that, but essentially it's been reduced by 25%. And longer term, the intention is that the level of the salary cap will be linked to what the central distributions are. The central distributions are the money that we get from PRL, which essentially comes from the TV deal and sponsorship like Gallagher's sponsoring of the Premiership. So the aim is to link those two, so that if that central distribution goes up, then the salary cap goes up, and if it comes down, which hopefully won't be the case, then the salary cap would come down. But it will avoid the situation that we've had in previous years, where the salary cap has increased, but the central distributions haven't, and therefore clubs have been effectively encouraged to take on more and more debt. And that's what's created some of the very difficult financial situations that some clubs find themselves in. So ongoing, that isn't going to be an issue. And Alex and George are going to talk more about recruitment and the playing side shortly. Before they do, I just wanted to update you on the training ground. We have to move out of Hartpury at the end of this season, and we had investigated dozens and dozens of potential sites around Gloucester and Gloucestershire. It was always our preference to stay within Gloucester, but we had to look slightly outside as well. And the council have been very helpful in our searches as well. We had settled on a site as our preferred option, but the impact of COVID and the lockdown has meant that we're just simply not in a position to develop the site at that time. And some of you were kind enough to donate your season ticket money last season, and we said that will go towards the training ground, which it still will. That will still be ring-fenced. But perfectly honestly, it was going to take a lot more than that to build the new training ground, and we've had to spend that on staying afloat. So what we're going to do, we're going to develop a training ground here. It's going to be an elite standard training facility. We're actually likely to go back into the Lion's Den, which coincidentally, when the stadium was first built, the Lion's Den was the training facility. So it's coming full circle. This one will be a little bit better than it was 100 years ago when they were training there last. It will be an elite level training facility. And actually, everybody's looking forward to coming home. It'll be great to have everybody on one site, and it will really help promote the feeling that we've got now that we're one organisation. It's not two separate entities. And we'll use this facility for a couple of years. And then the intention is that when the financial situation improves and we're able to do so, that then we will revert to the site that we've identified. It will still be available at that time. Club members who donated their season ticket money, we will recognise you in both training facilities, in the King's Home one and in the new one, should we move there with a wall of fame. So you will still be recognised. So that's it from me. Thank you for that. I'm going to be hanging around, and if there are any questions that are for me, and I think there probably are, I'll be happy to take them later. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to Alex and George to talk about the recruitment and the playing side.
Thanks, Lance. I'm sure there will be plenty of questions for you, Lance. And great to see you all here at Kingsholm. Like Lance said, it's a shame it's only 25 of you, but we're delighted to have you here. And lucky you guys being here, and I'm sorry that this couldn't be streamed out live to all the people who applied for it, which is a real shame, but you'll be able to see the video and watch it back numerous times, so enjoy that. I'm just going to talk to you briefly about recruitment and how George and I are working together, but firstly I wanted to just put something to bed that frustrated me. We had this rumour came around, and you're probably all aware of it, about Ollie Thorley. And Ollie Thorley suddenly going to Sale. I just wanted to categorically put it on record that Ollie Thorley is not going anywhere. He's very much enjoying his time here. And so we're delighted that he's with us, and put that one to bed. Some of these rumours that come out, it does make me laugh. It really does. You read them and you think, God, where did you get that from? And some of them actually are quite accurate. And I'm thinking, actually, where did they get that from? Because no one knows about this apart from us three normally. And that's the way we like to work it. We are all very, very much working together as a three. And in terms of recruitment and what we're doing, it's very much aligned to what Lance said in his talk. The way that we're working is to driving our recruitment through our academy. And that has to be the way forward. We know that the academy, the importance of the academy and the importance of understanding what it is to play for this club, actually putting that shirt on and representing the values and the traditions that have gone before is so important. And you can only do that with players who've understood that from the very, very outset. And that's when they come in at 14, 15-year-olds and they're involved in the DPP centres, they understand exactly what it is to be a Gloucester Rugby player. And so that's why that investment at that academy level is so important, aligned with all the other salary cap benefits we get with the academy. But most importantly, they understand what it is to be a Gloucester Rugby player. I've got a few notes here I'm just running through. So obviously, having that consistency of squad is absolutely imperative for any success, and Lance alluded to it in his talk, the success that Exeter have had. But it's not just only within rugby, it's other sports as well. You look at the successful football teams and the consistency of squad they've had across their group. That's what brings about success. And you only look at Leinster, who have been so fantastically prolific over the years. And that's borne about by their consistent squad and staff that have been there for the long term. So that's what we're absolutely building at the club. In any one season, there's always gaps to fill and recruitment spots to put in place, and the process that we go about that is great. It's really collaborative, and I'll talk you through that in a minute. But I'm hoping you're pleased with some of the new recruits that we've brought in over the last week. I know that they're here for very much the long term, and overall our strategy with recruitment is about retention, not about recruitment. So recruitment becomes quite easy because I don't want to be doing it all the time. But retaining our top players is absolutely paramount. And in doing that, I've got some absolutely exclusive news for you all today, that we're delighted to announce that Jack Singleton.
Hi guys, happy to have committed myself to Gloucester for the future. Looking forward to having you all back at Kingsholm soon.
So that's great news for us, and actually shows testament to what George and the coaches have put together as a coaching team to lure a player away from the so-say big club Saracens to come back to play for Gloucester. It shows what presence the coaches have put in place. And just with our recruitment, we absolutely look at everything. My job and role is very much to scout and to use my network of key individuals at other clubs and agents that I'm associated with to get all this group together, and we go through a strong list. And it's a collaborated approach whereby all the coaches are involved throughout the process. So George takes very much control of the forwards, and Alex King the backs. And so we've got a very, very joined up approach to how we recruit, and we absolutely go through the best means possible to get the right person. The most important bit for us is actually get the person who has the best character, and interviewing these people is probably the last test for us. We go through the long process, and then we have an interview. And it's been difficult recently because we've been restricted with COVID, and whereby we've had to hold these interviews over Zoom, and that has been tough. But you can definitely tell the characters who want to be here, want to be at the club, and want to fight for this club and the long-term success. I'll hand over to George, and I'm sure you'll want to hear from him more. But George will probably brief you a little bit about what sort of characteristics we're looking at in terms of those players, in terms of recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go into the details of what Brownie's talking about, the way we break it down, if you like. So the starting point, obviously, Brownie sends us lists of players, and everyone's got a separate section. So if we're talking about a front row, obviously Trevor Woodman, he's the starting point for that. So obviously, can the prop scrummage? First and foremost, sounds ridiculous, but that's got to be the starting point. Hooker, can he scrummage? Can he throw well in the line out? If they can't do that, well then we'll move them on. If they can, well then we're going to a secondary bit with Kingy. What's their ball carrying like? Have they got good footwork? We sort of, I suppose from now on we prioritise a bit of set piece. So prop has to be good at his set piece. Ball carrying wise, we accept an all singing, dancing prop who can do everything. There's not too many of them. They're going to cost a fortune. So are we going to allocate that amount of money to that? Or is it a set-piece prop who can do the basics? But they've got to be able to carry. They've got to be able to tackle. Is he young? So with the tackle, it goes to Dom Waldock. If they're sort of early 20s or whatever, and there's an area, for instance, tackling, their feet get a bit stuck or whatnot. Dom, do you think you can work with this? Do you think you can improve this? Same with the carrying with Kingy. Tim, for instance, with the kicking. We know the kicking's been an issue here for a long time. We've got a terrible return on kicking for sticks, but we've also got a poor return on kicking for corners, box kicking. All these areas we've identified as areas we can strengthen up. They all need to be ticked off. So it's not okay to just get a good player in, because he can run and do some mastery with the ball. We need the basics in place. So we all have a starting point. I cover the back five of the scrum. Again, locks, back rows. What's their line-out skills like? What's their scrummaging like? If I like him, Kingy, what do you think about his ball carrying? If he gets past Kingy, Dom, what do you think about his defence? And it all goes round the houses, if you like, with a sort of graduated approach. You've got to get past step 1, step 2, step 3. I say to Brownie, how much money does he want? Yes or no? So there's a long process. It's an arduous process. The recruitment now, it's long, and it's a lot of homework for all the coaches particularly. and Brownie speaking to the agents at night, but it's just part and parcel of breaking what Lance was talking about. If we just go and get good players who do certain parts of the game well, without checking their character, the finer details of their game, we will just carry on like that. So once they tick all the boxes in terms of what they can do on the field, then we're all on the phones ringing people. We're blessed actually with the setup we've got of how many connections we have at different clubs, different countries, and we just spend hours, right, who do you know here, there, get on the phone, what's he like, can he be improved? It might be 3 years ago someone coached him, he was not quite there then you've got to find a contact who's known him in the last 6 months, what's he like, and all the rest of it. Then we're Zooming them, we're talking to them, we prod away, and we work out as best we can what sort of character they're on and where they are as well. There's probably our squad's probably been weighted certain ways in recent times, and essentially we want a good core middle range of 23, 24, 25-year-olds who are hungry, keen, still have a lot to learn in their game but are accomplished already, and therefore we bring guys in who can really push the club forward, but we can train, push them, adapt them, to get the game in place that we think is the way forward for Gloucester. So a lot of the guys that you're seeing getting announced are around that age profile. That's probably the weaker point of our squad at the moment, if you like. We've got some good young guys, we've got some good older guys, but we want to be covered in all areas. So the young guys can be pushing that middle bracket. The middle bracket are asking questions of the senior lads, if you like, and it's just a self-fulfilling cycle and a chain, if you like, to go through it. So it is exhausting. It's a lot of work, and it won't necessarily come to fruition straight away because these guys need to get here. They need to get bled in. But in the long term, we'll get one or two wrong. The whole process doesn't. It's not bulletproof. But we like to think 9 out of 10 of the people we bring in will be here for the long run, properly invested in the club. People who want to come here for the right reason, and that's one of the things with Adam, for instance. He could have easily stayed in Scotland, and financially he could have definitely stayed in Scotland, but he's coming here for the right reasons. So it's a long process, but we're pretty confident it's robust and it'll take the club forward.
We are blessed with what we have here as a club and the infrastructure we've got here as a club. There are not many rugby clubs like this. There really aren't, and not many with the wonderful support network we have. And that is such a big sell and such a big win for us going into a meeting with a player. We're talking about Gloucester Rugby here, and we are very, very proud to be able to showcase that. And it certainly does change the mind of a few people once we get them here to the stadium and show them around and show them the shed, and it is fantastic. And so we're truly lucky with that.
I should just say one other thing about support in what could turn out to be a potentially career-limiting opportunity. You'll see Martin's dialed in from another place. He was unable to make it today, but he specifically said to me, if it's the last thing you do, don't forget to remind people that he wanted to be here tonight and that he's here in presence, albeit having to dial in remotely. And sure enough, the very last thing that I did was forget to mention that Martin is. So Martin's a great support to the club and to us, the management team. So I'm sorry I forgot to mention it to start with, Martin. But he did want to be here, but unfortunately got tied up in a meeting, in another rugby meeting, and so is joining us virtually. So if I'm not here for the next call, you'll know what the reason for that was.
So to the floor, I think, to questions. I think we've got some that have come in. Who's asking? At the back.
We can start with one for George. Looking back at this weekend, mainly at the selection, what was your kind of thinking behind the team you sent to Lyon, and how does that selection go forward, I guess, for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the selection, we're a little bit unlucky at the moment with injuries. We've actually had a good run up till 2 weeks ago with having fit bodies, and we just had one of those weeks where we lost a lot of players, and also we got a lot of internationals away. So I think we ended up with more internationals than we anticipated. A lot of them have played 4 or 5 extremely difficult games. So I felt to bring them back in, throw them back in for the first game would be wrong, because it will catch us somewhere down the line. You know, we could play them in that game and then play them in this game and then play them at Exeter away, and there's no weeks off in this season. So it's a unique season that we're going back to back to back to back, and somewhere down the line it will catch you out. So we felt, you know, we planned something slightly different, I won't lie. When all the injuries came in, we had to readjust our plan, and I felt it was a good opportunity to send some of the young guys down there and say, look, this is Lyon away, one of the best teams in France. You know, they're on a roll. Let's see what we can do. And you know, I thought there were some young guys really shine through. Like I've mentioned George Barton quite a lot this week, but I thought he was outstanding. He throws himself in the way, you know, and some of his chasing back when Lyon did break through was second to none. Never mind what he did to control the game, and his composure and the way he bosses the boys around is, trust me, it's going to be massive for the future of the club. You know, there was a few other guys. Obviously, we had Seb in from Hartbury. You know, he's never even played a Premiership game, so it was his first game out of the Championship, and I thought he stepped up. The young wingers, there was lots of good things. I thought Tommy Seabrook in the middle. You know, he was disappointed with his game the week before, and we asked him, you know, you're actually one of the senior lads this weekend, so. And I thought he stepped up and was extremely physical. Would we have liked to score a few more points? Yes. Would we have liked to have made it a little bit harder on Lyon at times? Absolutely. And, you know, we don't walk away from any game like that saying, great, you know, we bled some youngsters, don't worry about the result. Of course we worry about the result. But I think the overall view of it, as I say, is, you know, to roll everybody out last week, I think would have caught us down the line. So we've got to manage it as best we can. And, you know, I'm a pretty positive bloke, so I take the positives from it. And I'm really excited about how some of those young lads stepped up in what was an extremely physical game with guys like Isaac, Rodder and Bastereau on the other team. It was a tough day, but beneficial in the long run.
Thank you, George. We've got one for Martin. What is the current position regarding ring fencing? Pundits saying an announcement is due in January 2021. Do you have any more information?
Are you well informed? The situation is that there are ongoing discussions with you as to whether or not the Premiership should be ring-fenced at the end of this season for the long term. So the current proposal that may be no relegation, no team going down, one team coming up, which we assume will be Saracens. But it hasn't been agreed. But interestingly, I think camping that there'll be no relegation. So who knows? But it's certainly high on everybody's agenda at the moment.
Thank you, Martin. Is there anyone in the room that would like to ask a question? Bear with me. Come to the front.
How far away are Willie and Ben coming back?
Still a little way, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's obviously, I'd love to have had those two guys at my disposal, if you like, since I've been here, but unfortunately, you know, since I've been here, both guys have been injured pretty much the whole way through. Willie obviously got out for Bath, and I thought he was outstanding in a game where he hadn't played for a little while, but he went off with England and picked up an injury there. And they're both still a good while off getting back on the field, unfortunately.
Mike. I guess, Alex, this is a nice follow-up for you. Would it be possible to keep fans updated with availability of players and possibly some interviews with injured players and their progress towards playing again?
Yes, absolutely. And I know this is a bone of contention with everyone about making people aware about what we're doing. We've actually, I don't know whether you've noticed, but we've taken on board a new website over the summer. And one of the key pages that we want to add into that website is an injury update page. And it will just be solely on the injuries and the status of everyone. So you'll be able to get a clear picture about who's available, who's not, and what injuries, to a level of details that you need to know. Obviously, we can't divulge too much information, but we will put a page on the website. So that is due fairly soon, actually. So stand by for that.
Perfect. Is there any more in the room? I saw one at the back. There you go. Sorry.
All right, okay, of course, yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Evans. I think you might have actually answered a little bit of this, and I'm delighted to hear about the sort of long-term view, and it's looking at the graph there, you know, where we've had little peaks and troughs of success, but generally speaking, it's, like you said, an average of about 7.5, because position in the league, that is. I don't think the fans mind taking a loss so much if they can see a progression towards something. So really, it's a question about time, because we seem to chop and change our coaches really regularly. You know, look at Sarries, look at Exeter, and look at Leicester in the past, and Wasps even, when you were there, George, they had coaching teams that were there for a long time. So it's how long do we need to create a culture and a style that we can call a Gloucester identity? And do you think you'll get that time?
Do I think I'll get that time?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I hope so.
I'm going to spoil it. I think you will, George, just so that everybody knows.
I think I'd love to give you an exact timescale. I think the recruit. No, I know. I think the recruitment is a huge part of it. I think the people we bring into the club, the way we're doing it now, will be massive. And I'm 100% certain in my mind that will change a lot of things and build that consistency and, as I say, the right age profile, the right sort of people to bring in who desperately want to be here. Now that's, you know, we've got a squad of lads who desperately want to be successful and desperately want to be here as well. So that just complements that. But we are changing certain things. You know, when we, as I say, we know our kicking percentages aren't good enough. We know. You know, we broke down the game over the last 2 years. We know when we've got into, we call it the A zone, but I mean when we get down into the 22 of the opposition, as we say, that the return hasn't been great. You know, and we've started making a shift there. We've started to build a set piece where we can score a maul try, as well as score a wonder try. And you know, we've identified. We played a lot in the middle of in the field, say so. That's great when a super try comes off and it looks amazing and everything, but actually sometimes there's different ways of getting into try scoring opportunities, and sometimes that does involve kicking. Now, we absolutely accept there's been games where we've almost reverted to kicking, and there's a balance of players doing what they've done the last few years and understanding what we're trying to get across, and sometimes under fatigue he gets caught in the middle of it, and we know we can't just train something for 6 weeks, talk about it, and it's going to happen, because once you get tired and you get smacked around a bit, those things. But you know, there's somewhere in the middle of that with a game plan, if you like, where we're trying to get to. How long it'll take, I'm not exactly sure. The guys we're bringing in, we've discussed all this with them. You know, Adam's obviously the prime example about how we want to play, how he wants to develop his game, and you know, himself, Kingy, me, we thrashed all this out, and he's very excited about the way we want to go. And he's an attacking 10 by nature. So there's a lot of balls in the air, if you like, and we know we're going to suffer a bit of pain by changing habits and changing mindsets. And there's some lads are absolutely flying into it and they're loving it, and there's some guys who it takes a bit more time with to adapt. And we're very honest, as I say, we know we're not playing the perfect game by any means, but we can see the subtle shifts that are coming along, and we're pretty confident that we're getting there, and the boys are enjoying it. You know, it's as I say, we don't, like last weekend, we don't walk around and come in on a Monday and say that was great. We all sit down, we break it down, we analyse. Everybody's working extremely hard. You know, they've got platforms at home now that they can work through their own game digitally and send us questions, and we can send them back. And I don't want them thinking rugby 24/7 because it'll burn them out, but it is a serious profession. It's more of a lifestyle choice than a job, being a rugby player. You know, your whole life does have to centre around that, and your days off you have to recover. You know, you can't train extremely hard and just say, I'm playing golf because that's what I do. You know, if you're tired, you've got to have the day off. It's as simple as that. And it's quite hard on the partners sometimes. You know, but there's a lot to it, and I think once you embrace that and challenge yourself a little bit, some of the boys are really thriving, and I hope to see the returns on that. I'd love to see them in the next month, but the reality is it will take a little bit longer, I think. But hopefully you'll see snapshots of it and recognise it and start to enjoy that. But I'm never going to stand here and say it'll be absolutely perfect and we'll get it at this point in time. But I'll be perfectly honest about how we're doing it and you know, the areas that we've identified we need to push on.
And is that enough, you know, so culture, you know, and style within a club, is that what you're saying there? Is that enough to create that little bit extra, because teams are so close, it's so competitive? How do you just get that little bit extra, you know? Because I think we all, as fans, will see that, you know, we know that the Exeter players will like practically die for each other on the line. You know, they are going to pound away until they get over that line. And almost the Saracens and the Wolfpack thing, you know, as well. I hate to say it, but it bloody works really well. And I just thought, is that something that we're looking to try and mould our own version of whatever it, you know, happens to be? And I just
no, that's absolutely right. I think Cowan Dickey said something in the newspaper this week about acknowledging like Exeter don't always do everything amazingly, but they all buy into it and they're on board, and as you say, they back each other up. And I was very blessed, you know, to come through a couple of environments where that was the case. And you know, that's again, you know, when Kingy and Dom and were part of that as well. And I think a lot of that is just being on the same page and clearly understanding what you want to do and buying into it and working extremely hard. And yeah, we see the game slightly differently to what's gone before, and that's the nature of new coaches. But yeah, in the end, you have to have a group who work extremely hard, take a lot of pride in their job, understand what the objective is, and just work for each other. And that's, as I say, we feel we're making some really good shifts in that direction, and I know the players do as well. But as I say, it will take a little bit of time, and it will, but we'll get there.
Thank you, George. Alex, one for you. Now that you're COO, how are you splitting your time between the commercial and playing department?
Long nights, no, seeing my family very little. No, it's been actually brilliant. I've really enjoyed it, and splitting the time between the two has made the role even more enjoyable, because I've got a full understanding and comprehension about where the business is going financially and commercially, and then the impact that has on the team. And so splitting the time is actually, it's hugely beneficial, because you can actually completely understand where the business is going and draw from that knowledge. Having two sites, being Hartbury and Kingsholm, is a challenge, because half of my week is over there and half of it's here. When we're here as a training centre here, and Lance said about the Lions Den being formerly the gym, I was here when that was a gym, and it was great. So I'm looking forward to doing that and embracing that time. But having us all on one site is absolutely the way forward, and in the fullness of time, that's what we'll aim to do, so that we're all buying in on this together. We are one club, and everyone involved, including all the commercial staff here, should feel very much part of a rugby club, and it not be split over two sites. So it's been tough, but thoroughly enjoying it.
Right, so I suppose it's a question about the other C word at the moment, which is concussion. And I was wondering whether you guys are thinking about future training plans, and whether you might be reducing contact during the week, whether that might help or even reduce injuries to players, or whether that might actually make it worse, and having less contact during the week would turn that into a worse problem come match day.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It's a really tough dynamic to work, because as you say, if you do no contact in a week and then you run out and play, you know, against some seriously physical teams, you're going to get hurt for sure. If you do too much, there's a good chance you get hurt in the week. So there's a real balance of what we need, but what we do have is, obviously we have GPS units when we train, and they monitor a certain amount of collisions. So they do your meters, your high speed meters, your accelerations, and also your collisions. Now they don't give you exact impact. You know, that it's not a rating of an impact; it's just an impact. So what we have actually brought in this year is we've got some mouth guards that have microchips in, and we're at the very early stage of this. But the boys are wearing those in the contact sessions, and we're getting readings back as to more of a accurate, you know, how many impacts, how many high impacts, how many low impacts, and trying to monitor that alongside what a game looks like. So we are at the very early stages of that. This is the first time this has been done. I think there's a couple of other clubs doing it as well, but there is a lot of things in place where we're trying to work our way through it. I mean, there is less contact in training than there used to be when me and Brownie were training, which is a good thing, I think, but by the state of us. But I think, like, you know, you do have to monitor it. You do have to be on top of it, but you've also got to understand it. You know, if a young lad does no contact and then he comes into the sort of top level stuff, it's going to be very difficult for him. So it's just not being mindless, monitoring things. You know, if anyone gets a headbang, I think as you saw with Lloyd and Joe in the Quins game, they're straight off. If they can't pass, you know, the HIA process, we keep them off. You know, and there's arguments once or twice lads could come back on, but we've made the decision to keep them off. So we're doing everything we can. You know, obviously there's this ongoing stuff now, which will be very interesting to see how that takes shape. But I think things like the mouth guard will be the future, so you can monitor if someone's done too much contact, or you know, you're overdoing it or underdoing it as well. But yeah, it is a little bit of you know, trying to find that balance in between, which I don't think anyone's, you know, going to have an exact guideline on, but we'll do absolutely best.
I will say, and add to that, just the Premiership Rugby and the protocols that we have in place at the moment, it is quite frankly groundbreaking. Some of the bits that we put in place, the mouth guard, the HIA, the doctors that are on site at the moment, it really does show us in good light. We are leading the way in that concussion management, and obviously the issues that are in the press right now are historical ones, and those processes have distinctly changed. So we are in good hands, and as George says, we manage that particularly well.
Thank you, Alex. Lance, one for you. You mentioned about the government grant. Do you anticipate there will be any further funding should the ground continue to remain closed to the majority of fans?
Yeah, it's a good question. The government support that we've been that's been put aside for us this time is specifically to cover up until the end of March. So if restrictions continue beyond then the indication's been that there would be further support available. We hope that it doesn't. We hope that we are able to have a full house of fans back, but realistically speaking, I think it's probably unlikely that we'll have a full house by March. Hopefully towards the end of the season we might start seeing that, but yeah, we've been told that there is additional support available if it's necessary.
Thank you. Back to the floor.
Hi, quick question about coming back to Kingsholm. Obviously, in the past, we've had issues with the pitch, and you invested in it heavily a couple of years ago, which made a massive difference. And you can see how the groundsman produces the pitch brilliantly. With the playing squad training on it every day, is there a worry that we could go back to the old Kingsholm? Like you say, you talk about playing in the sunshine with a nice pitch, especially with these quick wingers. If you're playing on it all day, training on it all day, is there a worry that it's going to go backwards, or is there the option to go down the artificial route?
We wouldn't go down the artificial route, but it is something that we're very conscious of. It's one of the decisions that one of the key things that we were considering when we were looking at what we could do. I know that Stu, our groundsman, is delighted that the players are going to be training on the pitch. I think that's what he said. But yeah, it's something that we're conscious of and that we'll have to manage. So we do have access to other pitches nearby that we can also use, and we're making sure that the training schedule is such that the pitch is used. There are benefits to training on the pitch that you're going to play on, but that for other sessions, high impact sessions like scrummaging or whatever, that perhaps we use something else. And there are other pitches nearby at the university that we can use as well. So we are very conscious of that. I should probably let you answer that, really, shouldn't I, given that it was about training.
So we won't use the pitch every day, and we'll be very careful about the sessions we do use, because we want a great playing surface as much as anyone, obviously. So yeah, there's loads of options around here to use. So we'll make sure that's all right.
Back to the floor. There you go.
Thank you. Sorry, can I just pick up on that? Are you suggesting of possibly using local clubs' facilities nearby for the training? You said there's loads of options around nearby.
It could be local clubs or universities. We obviously have still got a strong link with Hartbury College and Gloucester Uni down the road, where they've both got artificial pitches that would serve a purpose, and we've used them over the past 2 years actually, certainly at Hartbury obviously, and Gloucester Uni, whereby we did our high impact sessions on those rubber crumb surfaces, because they actually provide a really level playing field, whereby right at the moment the pitches, with the weather we've been having, it does chew it up and makes for a difficult session. So coming here and with the use of the other pitches is where we've been going.
I think I saw a couple more hands. Back to the floor. There you go.
Excuse me. The first few games of this season have really shown us an issue which we've been suffering for, well, as long as I can remember. We beat Wasps here with a great win, and then the week after struggled, well, didn't manage to get past a Quinn side that were really there for the taking. So my question to George is really, what are you doing in the immediate short term to solve that inconsistency?
Well, I suppose I think the Quins game is a difficult one because it was a bit of an anomaly. I thought it was, the first half we started slowly and we came back into it, and I was pretty happy with how we were building. Losing Billy in the first half sort of caught us because we only had Lloyd for 10, and then we lost Lloyd, and we asked Aki to step in at 10, and we lost Joe Simpson, and that gave us Will from Hartbury who was on loan to cover 9, which Will's done a great job, but I think that axis fell down a little bit, if I'm honest. And then we had Jamie Gibson at 12, so these aren't excuses. These are just the reality of what happened. And the pack fronted up and got us a couple of tries off the back of a maul, but it was a little bit of a perfect storm. And that game management is something we're talking a lot about as a group. As I say, traditionally we've run the ball really well, but I can tell you from analysing Gloucester from somewhere else, you traditionally been running the ball a lot, so it was very much keep Gloucester in their own half. Eventually they'll run themselves ragged and we'll get a turnover. So we're trying to change that. I think when you lose your 9 and 10 axes like that, it catches you. And it did on the day. And I thought Marcus Smith and Danny Kerr gave us a masterclass on how to manage that area, even when they were down a man. And again, very disappointed because we were all excited about that game because we'd obviously played them a few weeks before, and a couple of months before, and it hadn't been our greatest day then. So lots of issues. There was lots in the first half. We'd like to have done better, like I say, the beginning when we had a full team against their full team, but breaking it down bit by bit. If we kept Lloyd on the pitch or had Billy to step in at 10, I'd have been pretty confident we'd have delivered a different result. However, that's not the way it went, so I won't hide behind that. But that's just the reality of as a coach. You've got to sit back and go, right, how did we lose the game? And the boys weren't happy with how they managed the game, that's for sure, in the second half. But we're learning all the time. So we've got a little bit of Aki doing a bit more at 10 now. Not doing Gibbo at 12 because I'm hoping that scenario won't pop up too often. But it is what it is. You learn. You keep challenging different circumstances. And when we train, we always do. You're off for a yellow card. What's the plan? How do we do? We're down by 2 points. What's the plan? As I say, we hadn't planned for all those scenarios for that, and maybe that's on the coaches, but we're certainly disappointed, just like you are.
One for Lance or Alex, I guess. There's a few questions that have come in about the ballot process now that we're on reduced capacity, and can you ensure that it is a fair process and that people will get their chance at coming back to Kingsholm?
Yeah, we can maybe turn that back to you, Lucy, because it's actually you that manages the ballot for us. So if anybody does have any questions, what we've done, the first game where we had fans back, the Quins game that George just mentioned, because that was last season, we treated that separately because there are different season ticket holders, and some people will have come and some people will have gone. So when we started again this season, it was a ballot taken from everybody who applied. For the second game, this one on Saturday, everybody who didn't get a ticket the first time and who applied this second time was prioritised over everybody else. So we are trying to manage it as best we can. I'm sure you understand it's an incredibly complex process to do it, because it isn't just a case of having 2,000 fans in and come in and sit where you like. We've got to space you out properly. We've got to predict whether you're going to come in 1s, 2s, 3s or 4s. We can't change it later because the way that it's set up doesn't allow us to do that. So we try our best to make sure that it's fair for everybody, and try to prioritise people who've not been asked before. But if anybody's got any specific things on it or doesn't feel they're getting, a fair shot or whatever, do by all means give us a shout, contact us at admin at Gloucester Rugby or customer services at Gloucester Rugby, and we'll do our best to sort it out.
Thank you. Is there any more questions in the room?
Thank you. 2 questions, if I may. One probably for Martin and one for the floor. 10. No, in fact, before I start with that, a fans forum wouldn't be a forum without mentioning, obviously, the advertising screens on the shed and also the PA system, which I won't do. So, cover for 10. Lloyd, great. Yep, brilliant. But for the season, we're going to wait until Adam turns up. Do you feel you've got enough cover at 10, or is there going to be any money in the pot for potential temporary cover during the season? Because as been proven with regards to injuries, anything can happen. And a question for Martin, I believe, with regards to TV coverage, it's obviously been reported that PRL have refused, or the BT contract finishes, or potentially finishes, and they say there's not enough money. How much of a say do the owners of the clubs get to say with regards to TV rights? Because obviously that is probably instrumental and very, very important to every single club within the Premiership with regards to the money that generates.
Should we start with Martin?
Okay, that's a good question. The clubs do have a lot of say in what happens as regards to renewing of the BT media contract. And I've been actually working on this all week because I'm the main PRL board has been negotiating BT to extend the contract another 3 years, and the negotiations are at a very, very early stage. But we do have a big say in what goes on. And the discussions are constructive. I think I can say that.
Thank you. And the question about the 10 cover?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's not ideal losing a 10 at this stage in the season for sure. And Billy is, at least a month away from coming back, so that's not ideal as well. Lloyd, as I say, George Barton, I've got a huge amount of faith in. I'm not saying he's a finished article or anything like that. But look, we've got Santiago coming in, and one of the conversations with him was, what positions he's comfortable covering, and he is a back 3 player, but he has played 10. And Argentina have high hopes for him being a 10 in the future. So I think it's a bit of a fluid thing at the moment. Myself and Brownie, we discuss these things all the time, and it's never ideal, especially when you're going through a period like we are where lads are getting injured and you sort of, who can cover here, who can cover there. But it's definitely something we're discussing. It'll be interesting when Santiago gets here, just to see him in the flesh. And put him under a bit of pressure and that sort of thing. But I don't think we could rule either way, really, at this point, could we?
No, and just on Santiago, he flies in just after Christmas, so we'll be seeing him fairly soon, which will be exciting for us all.
We have a commercial question, so either Lance or Alex. With Mitsubishi exiting the UK market, has the search for a gold standard new main sponsor started yet, and what progress has been made?
That's something that we were aware of a little while ago. So we started the search for a new main sponsor a little while ago. We're making some pretty good progress. We have some pretty decent conversations going on. I, of course, can't tell you what they are or who they're with, but we're confident of finding another top quality main business partner, and as soon as we do, as soon as we can announce it, we'll let you know.
Are there any more questions in the room?
Hi there, thank you. Maybe one for you, Lance. You touched on the academy pathway and the activity within your communities teams. I'm quite conscious that every time I've visited Kingsholm, I've seen quite substantial advertising from Dean's Close School, making statements about having lots of their pupils in the pathway. And of course, Cheltenham College, I think similar but different. I'm quite conscious of the two private schools, and I'm quite conscious of the wealth of local clubs in Gloucestershire. And I feel with that advertising, there's possibly a message, a subliminal message going out that to kids in the community that unless you go to one of those two schools, you might not have the same access to Gloucester Rugby as if you're going to one of the local clubs or maybe one of the local state schools here. With the changes that you're putting in place, is there any activities with local schools or local clubs that you've got in the pipeline?
Yes, there is, and it's a good question, Dave. We've already got our eye on your boy and his scrum half activity, so we know that's how good our scouting is. I know what all of your kids do. But yeah, we do. We want to be fully inclusive as a club, and we want to make sure that everybody knows that they can play rugby if they want to. And actually, whether you may one day be good enough to play for Gloucester Rugby or Gloucester Hartpury, or you just want to enjoy playing rugby, we take it as our responsibility to help promote that. So some of the changes that we're making in our community department will see a much greater emphasis across our whole area, and our area isn't just Gloucestershire, it's parts of Oxfordshire as well. So spreading out into those areas to try to spread the love of playing rugby and what it can bring, whilst at the same time talent spotting and feeding people through our academy system. So yes, really important for us that we're a big part of the community and that everybody knows they can be part of the club.
Thank you, Lance. I think I saw another hand up. Was it you?
You mentioned about character earlier today. What's the single best, or what's the most important trait to you guys when you're selecting your squad and recruitment and things?
Single most important. I suppose it would be a work ethic, you know, and again, it's not a simple one just to define, but it would be more respecting what this profession is. You know, I think it's there's a real mixed bag of professional rugby players, you know, where you get guys who really respect what they're doing, and as I say, it's a lifestyle and it's not a job, because it takes over everything you're doing, down to your social life is dictated by your job. You know, your day off is dictated by your job. What you eat is dictated by your job. How you behave, how you can front up on a Monday when you've had it's easy to front up when you have a good day. It's very difficult to front up when you have a bad day. And that's, like I say, you guys want to see the injury report. My Monday morning is the hardest bit of my week to swallow when I get the injury report. So I'm thinking, you guys don't want to see it the first thing Monday. It start you off on a bad footing. But you know, how you conduct yourself and confront up and learn from your mistakes or learn from a loss and still continue to work hard and live by that standard that you set, I think is massive. And I think that's, as I say, you know, I've been in professional rugby now for 20 years or whatever it is, and there's a big void between people who can do that, and every single week they work hard, they give what they've got, whether they're the best player or not, and whether it's going their way or not, because it's not always going to go your way. You know, you're not going to get selected sometimes, you're going to get injured, the coach is going to tell you stuff you don't want to hear, you're not going to like the coach at times, do you know what I mean? And that's probably the biggest thing. So that's a big question for me when I do ring other coaches or other players to dig around is, you know, just give me an example of how did he respond when this happened, or how did he respond when this, and when the going's good, you know, is he all about himself, or when the going's good, is he trying to drag a young lad through? Is he, you know, his career's flying, is he helping the other people around him? Is he interacting with people in his position who ultimately could take his position, but it's all just part of that work ethic and what you stand for. And I think that's the ultimate key point, because if you haven't got that, it's you can't fake that, you know, and you can't have a successful squad with too many people who aren't aligned with that. So it's yeah, that'd be the one thing that we do the deepest bit of digging on, I suppose.
I think we've got time for a couple more questions, if there's any more in the room. Thank you.
Sorry, just one for all three of you maybe. What would success look like for you this season, on and off the field?
Who wants to go first?
Let's go on the field first.
On the field, I think look, success, I think Lance has outlined where we want to get to in the long term. I think for this year, success for me personally would be knowing a few things, that we've got the right people in, on a recruitment channel, and we've got that system in place. I think regardless of where we finish in the table, I think success would be the game plan is in place and the boys understand it exactly, and as I say, under fatigue, we still deliver the same game plan, and we don't have a good week and then have a bad week. The consistency issue of, that Gloucester's had for a long time, basically. I think that would be ultimately success if we got to the end of this year, and whether it's going good, bad, we're tired, we're getting thumped, we're miles on top, whatever it is, we're still sticking to the game plan and everyone's understanding it. And we've built that solid foundation. That would be success. As I say, I suppose where we finish in the league will be the time that it takes us to get to that point. But that's where I would deem success for this sort of first season on the field.
Thank you, George. And we've got the last one here.
Sorry, I'll just answer the second part of it. A little while ago, I would have said that success off the field would have been still having a club at the end of the season. In the middle of COVID, that wasn't certain. We're past that point now. So really the off-the-field objectives are really completely aligned with the on-field objectives to have a commercial operation that's capable of supporting what we're doing going forward. And we know that we've got that. So barring any further really unexpected disasters, we're off the field, we're heading in the right direction, same as we are on it, and both on and off, we're going to be relying on your support to help us get there.
Thank you.
I suppose it's a question in terms of the squad of 1,000s that we're essentially all members of, and whether you guys give your players, and particularly some of the younger players, some sort of maybe emotional awareness training about maybe the lens of what Gloucester Rugby supporters might look like via things like Shedweb, for example, and how they might be looked after in their own sort of mental health ability to look after themselves when they might have a bad game and they get absolutely trounced on Shedweb by people with expert opinions from their armchairs. Do you guys try to look after them? Do you try to get them to avoid looking at those things, or do you get them to look at it, embrace it, and look at it for what it really is, and try and learn and grow about how to be a man and stand up on your own 2 feet without all these slings and arrows coming at you, I suppose?
I don't know what you're on about. Shedweb's fantastic. I think all the comments on there are great and very to the point. No, I think you make a really, really good point, actually, particularly around social media and what these young players and it's not just rugby players, it's everyone actually, what they're exposed to on social media and what effects it can have on you. And we work with the RPA very closely with that in terms of the awareness of what social media can do and be protective of that and very mindful of engrossing yourself in that network. A lot of these players and certainly the current crop are actually using their profiles more and more to promote lots of things, not just their rugby ability, but external and what they're looking to do in the future. So there is a balance because you've got a great tool to shout about what you're doing, but there is a balance definitely about looking at it pre-match, looking at it post-match, and how that can fit into your actual life and the training program. I don't know whether you want to talk about it anymore.
No, I think it's a tricky one. I'm not on social media personally, so I'm fully aware it gets messy. But I think the modern day player, it is, they can be exposed to anyone's opinion at any time, and you've got to be strong enough to accept. Not everyone has the facts in front of them, but equally everyone's entitled to an opinion. But the other thing we are doing is, we've been talking to some sports psychologists and working out who's the best fit for Gloucester. And it's something we feel strongly that all of us can benefit from, because the coach, as you say, we want the responsibility to install mental toughness in the players and for on the pitch, they're making decisions and when things go completely wrong and there's no plan and you've got to think on your feet, we want that, and I think that's an area we've identified we want to grow here, but also away from the game because, as I said earlier, sometimes you're not picked, sometimes you have a terrible day and it's a unique job that you can have a terrible day, but it just so happens there's thousands and thousands of people have watched you have a bad day. So, if you, whatever, most careers you can have a bad day, you go home, you shut the door, you have a bottle of wine or whatever, and you go, right, okay, let's go again. Whereas if you're too busy on social media in this game, you've got thousands of people telling you how bad you are. And that is always a perception thing. So I think it's something that does get addressed, but it's something we're very conscious that a proper professional outfit will really help us build that robustness, especially within the young lads who, it will only grow more and more. So it is something that we talk about on a certain level, but we're getting some proper people into, it will be part of what we address going forward.
Thank you, George. Before we draw to a close, Martin, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Thanks. Yeah, I'd just like to summarise really. I think it's been great to have the fans forum. A long time since we've had one. I think it's George's first forum. It might even be Alex's first. It's terrific to hear from the three of you, and I think it's self-evident that we've got standing management team now. Lance's dedication, Alex's sense to his new role as fantastic staff. George has set about his new career as head coach with his team, but also a huge amount of dedication and enthusiasm. So hopefully it's a real good platform for the long term, and the words long term are being used a lot. But I do feel extremely confident that we're in very good shape. I just wanted to make three quick thank yous at the end. First of all, to all the staff. Lance put up a little slide saying everybody had taken a 25% pay cut, which everybody did, and that's huge. It's a huge sacrifice. Without that, in deep trouble. So all the staff, all the players taking that on Jim, and being very professional. I want to thank the sponsors and others who've been unbelievably supportive. Very few sponsors ask for any rebates whatsoever, and the only ones who have are the odd business deep troubles. So the sponsors and the box sellers have been handling. And last but not least, the wonderful Gloucester Rugby. Again, unbelievable support. It's so frustrating having 15,000 of you all in the stadium for every home game, but hopefully we can get back to that soon. But the club is engaged due to some really tough decisions, and it's principally down, which is what this club's all about. So thank you very much indeed for your fantastic support. That's all from me.
Perfect. Guys, have you got anything extra to add?
Don't think so. No, I think
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for your time this evening, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thank you.